I don't know what happened. I was supposed to take her to the Fireflies and walk away. You go halfway across the country with someone. She needed her immunity to mean something. Maybe I was starting to buy into that whole cure business. Maybe I just wanted to do right by her. And then we made it. We found the Firefly. Because of her, they were actually going to make a cure.
And you're okay with killing her?
No!
Don't look.
Dad! Dad! No! No!
No, I'm okay with developing a vaccine that'll help save millions of lives. How many Fireflies have died for less?
That was their choice.
You're doing the right thing.
Get up! Joel, fucking get up!
We're allowed to be happy.
Dad, please stop!
Got a little mud on you there, sweetheart.
If somehow the Lord gave me a second chance at that moment, I would do it
Joel, please get
all
up!
over again.
In his book, Love's Executioner and Other Tales of Psychotherapy, psychiatrist Dr. Irvin Yalom writes about the relationship between therapist and client, saying it's the relationship that heals, that connection brings healing. A sentiment very much felt in part 1. Joel's perilous ascension from the depths of despair to the light of redemption played beautifully like a song of hope, love's hand reaching for reclamation. His path, as archaic as it was riveting, followed closely the steps along the hero's journey. Ellie's path is not one of a hero's redemption, but a hero's fall. Her song is sung in completeness from the start, and is then splintered along the broken path of despair and agony. In part 1, Ellie was a catalyst for redemption, a reminder that there is still good in this world, that there is still something worth living for, something worth fighting for, worth dying for. Everything that made Ellie Joel's strength fades into shadow. The light she so brightly shined in part 1 melts into the gray, thunderous skies of Seattle, washed away by its consuming rains. Everyone's journey is unique. We all go through dark times in our own way and come out the other side a different version of ourselves, for better or worse. Like with grief and trauma, we aren't the same after that. We're still here. We can still be grateful that we survived, but we're not the same. This expression is one of our inner world. The outer world is one we all share the experience of. It's materialistic, physical. Our inner world is unique to each of us. It's a term to express and characterize our consciousness, our inner monologue, our personal psychology, memories, traumas, fears, anxieties, hopes, and desires. We relate everything we experience to our inner world. Every encounter and choice is processed through it. Likewise, each experience and encounter is poured into it and has the ability to shift and shape us from the inside out. As people, we often search for a way to outwardly express and make sense of this inner world, whether it's through art and creativity, faith and spirituality, or actualizing our ideas in the outer world for everyone to see. Sometimes, though, this expression of what lays deep inside of us is something far darker, as the darkness within is reflected outward. Murder, war, massacre, genocide, assault, abuse, torment, anger, fear, frustration, agitation, desperation. These form a frightening picture, one that we can collectively call the monster. There have been many renditions of this monster throughout history. Vampires came from the idea that the brutal slaughtering of entire villages was done by something that wasn't human, because if it was human, it was one of us. But if we could escape that truth, that we are the vampires, the monsters of our own world, we could be relieved of the thought. We could avoid reconciliation. Other monsters, from Smaug of Tolkien's The Hobbit, to Grendel of the Old English poem Beowulf, to Amit, the devourer of the dead of ancient Egypt, to the Minotaur of ancient Greece. All of these have been created throughout history to give a face to the horrific nature of mankind, when our darkest, most heinous, cruel, inhumane, disgusting, filthy, dirty, socially unacceptable thoughts and desires begin to surface. But there is another type of monster, one who is unable to be seen. People often fail to describe it. This is a monster without a face. It was everywhere. A gelatin, a slime, a vapor. It had shapes, 1,000 shapes of horror beyond all memory. There were eyes, and a blemish. It was the pit, the maelstrom, the ultimate abomination. Carter, it was the unnameable. H.P. Lovecraft's The Unnameable and the Netflix film Bird Box both try to paint pictures of an inconceivable horror, but only whispers of blackness stare back at us through pages of description, whether drawn or written. The 1982 film The Thing, with its mess of practical effects, tries to make conceivable what is unable to be conceived, this nameless horror, this shadow. Carl Jung's concept of the shadow is an intangible, unseen, unnameable part of our unconscious. In his model of the unconscious, the shadow is the puppeteer behind the curtain. It is what we are truly capable of, actions our conscious wouldn't even consider, things our moral selves would not indulge nor condone. But it is in this shadow that the roots of our most heinous thoughts and desires exist, and from which our most heinous acts come. I would say this unnameable horror, this monster without a face, is trauma, emotional wounds. These mythological creatures become a part of who we are, as we are ever reminded of the horror they reflect, the desolation and reflection of what we have done to our own kind, to innocent women and children, to innocent animals, to our own environment, our own planet, what we have done to people we claim to love, to those closest to us, to those who looked up to us, to those who needed us, to those we were supposed to protect. Monsters are ugly to look at, but I think they scare us most because in them we see a part of ourselves we'd rather forget, a part we wish didn't exist. We see the misery, the horror, the cruelty, the malice, the suffering. We think of the victims of human hands. A lot of monsters that have been created have different symbolisms, like with Pennywise representing our fears that have to be overcome by our courage, and Smaug representing greed that has to be overcome by letting go, and the Unnameable representing trauma, our emotional wounds that cannot be seen, that have to be overcome by love, acceptance, and forgiveness. At every turn of the page or change of scene, monsters reflect a part of ourselves. Perhaps the only way the ancient people could communicate their pain, anger, and frustration with the nature of existence was to paint along the walls, write on scrolls the monsters of their lives. These stories reveal so much about who we are and the nature of our struggles. Traumas being the terrifying evils that torment people, not devils hanging bodies over fire. Guilt, depression, emotional wounds that drain people, not vampires or other creatures of the night. Abuse that hunts down the best we can be to bring us down to the worst, as wolves hunting in the dead of night. Trauma is a wolf inside us all, fed by our fears, our insecurities, our unresolved emotions and experiences, and is to that a testament. The Last of Us Part 2 opens with Joel's surrender, his confession of guilt, and the hope he carries to rectify his mistakes. He cleans a guitar, symbolizing the absolution of sins and the shedding of mistruth. He is ready to come clean and be honest about what happened, but his fears hold him back. The lie that defined the conclusion of Part 1 has taken on a life of its own. Growing distance and disdain between he and Ellie has made him weary of telling the truth. The lie was only used to her benefit in his mind, but also to his. Like many of us, Joel used a lie that he thought would be easier to accept as a shield to protect someone he loves. But the truth will set you free. The lie will never feed you or heal you like the truth. We need to hurt from it, bleed from it, scream in its face, and then ultimately accept it, no matter how hard it is to do so. This is the only way to heal. Lies are like band-aids on a gushing wound. They'll always bleed through.
And she believed you?
Didn't say otherwise.
The horse ride back to Jackson takes us through lush, scenic environments, an evergreen forest stained with the blood of travesties long past, a ruined neighborhood, what is now a window to how life used to be, a sunny hillside upon whose yellow haven fields the beautiful sky and majestic mountainous backdrop of Wyoming opens up to us. Jackson looks like the promised land, planted firmly in the middle of what was once a glorious yet simple place for families to live and thrive. And through Jackson, it now reclaims that abundant life. In this way, Jackson represents hope for humanity, a way forward out of the mess the infection has left. It's a thriving community full of life and love. Families are enjoying life, horses are being tended to, children are playing in the snow. People are going about their business not because of the infection, but in spite of it. Where the fireflies saw the light in the darkness as the vaccine, Jackson sees it as coming together and living in harmony as they had once done before, providing a place to foster real relationships where children can safely be raised, where some sort of normalcy can be sustained. That's the way forward. Curing the infection won't bring back civilization. Those who kill, victimize, and pillage will continue to do so even after the infection goes away.
You see, everything happens for a reason.
Joel's guitar represents his heart, as he had reached out to Ellie in part 1 wanting to teach her how to play, and recalled playing on his porch in Midsummer Eves gone by, before the fall of civilization. Through this instrument, he reaches back in time with fondness, and into the future with hope. It becomes an icon of his relationship with Ellie, and on this icon, he plays a song that melodically illustrates his love and his fear, that if he ever were to lose her, he would surely lose himself. The song deludes the awkwardness of what so clearly stands between them. It brings Joel and Ellie together. He sweetens the moment by gifting Ellie the guitar. This instrument becomes a mantle of remembrance through which the spirit of this moment will survive through the brush and brick of the coming years. The song Future Days becomes a sentimental hymn to which Ellie will turn in her darkest moments, to mourn, to reflect, to unwind the tape of time. And every next step of her journey, these are capsules that hold the essence of their relationship, the bond, the love, and the pain. Ellie has at last found a solid foundation upon which to build a life, which is all Joel really ever wanted for her. She's fallen in love, but has also distanced from Joel. We hear about a kiss that Ellie and Dina shared the night before. When she has to fetch Dina from a snowball fight, we can tell that there's an ocean of awkwardness between them, as if they're both so unsure what to think about it, and unsure what the other thinks about it. Then Ellie is dragged into the snowball fight, and we get a cute little combat mechanics tutorial where we get to throw snowballs at children.
Nope, no.
Oh, I'm coming for you, Tiny.
How did that not? Okay, I didn't get him. Woo! Okay. You're hiding right, like, the worst place. Yeah, whoa. Combat being
I'm gonna come over there and fight you, like, for real.
like, for real. Woo!
Parents don't love
Woo!
you.
Your parents don't love you. Oh my god.
I know where you live, Alex.
So fun. In Ellie's interaction with Seth, a character flaw is exposed. She is unable to forgive. A big component of forgiveness is the ability and willingness to let go, to let a wrongdoing go, to let a shortcoming go. This is a flaw that will later be exploited by tragedy.
Nora, all clear?
He's out. Put him against the wall.
Tommy! Get off me! Get off me!
Puta madre.
Joel Miller.
Who are you?
Guess.
As we're introduced to new characters, we get little glimpses into their relationships, their lives, and desires, witnessing from the front seat a little moment of panic that makes transparent what may later have been concealed in its absence. Abby is just as vulnerable as Ellie. The malevolent purpose these new people will serve in the story eludes us until we are faced with the grim, bloody truth. Who started as a fresh face we happily, yet confusingly took on the role of, becomes the monster of the story. This is the first time I felt a rift between myself and who I'm playing as. Everything that leads up to the moment Joel is killed seems inevitable. We have no choice but to take on the role of Abby and eventually lead her to the worst moment in the game. To me, it's an eerie way to place us in the point of view we'd least expect, and even more so, the least we'd want to be in. After Abby shoots Joel and her friends render Tommy unconscious, she has Mel tourniquet Joel's leg, propping him up against the wall. This is obviously something you would do if you were trying to save Joel's life, not take it. The reason she does this is so dark and disturbing that it can only be realized by the grueling scene that follows.
You stupid old man. You don't get to rush this.
Ellie's frantic search for Joel is hard to watch, let alone play. We are met with feelings of urgency, hoping in the back of our minds that we will be the hero of this story, who swoops in just in time to save Joel. But somewhere in our minds, we know that's not going to happen. Somehow, we know. There is no saving Joel. Our denial of this only perpetuates our rush to enter the house and run down the stairs, following the torturous cries of Joel. We enter the room to realize our worst fear. Joel is already beyond saving. Abby's friends hold us to the floor as Ellie begs for Joel's life. We wish so badly that we could break free and run over to save Joel, but despite the intensity of these feelings, we are unable to escape. This is our reality. God only knows how we got here, how everything has led to this moment. Abby grips the golf club and deals the final blow, killing Joel. I felt chills as Ellie talks directly to Joel, bypassing everyone else in the room as if they weren't even there. It's her knee-jerk denial of Joel's passing. Her brain is unable to properly process what just happened, which becomes stored in her nervous system as a traumatic event. One of Abby's friends wants to kill Ellie and Tommy, but surprisingly, Abby doesn't. We can't see her face when she deals the final blow, so we're left to assume she bared an expression of pleasure, satisfaction, or some other positive emotion, which only makes her even more cruel, sinister, and cold than any infected we've ever faced. As Ellie is given time to mourn, walking through memories and admiring household items that have now become a tribute to the life Joel lived, the love he gave, the person he was. Fury, depression, and outrage begin to flood Ellie's mind. Her heart darkened by a violent storm of emotions. Her next move becomes clear. She has to track down the bastards that did this. She has to make them pay. Though she is unsure how, she is certain that nothing can stop what's coming. In the haze of psychological conflict, she is unable to process facts over emotional compulsion. For one, she doesn't know who Abby is. Ellie has no idea what her motives are, why she did what she did. From this perspective, all she has to judge her by is what she's seen and heard. But imagine you're Ellie, and you don't even have the little bit of time we spent playing as Abby to reference. All you know is this: Abby killed Joel brutally with a golf club with little to no hesitation. Given the manner of execution and the level of emotional engagement, whatever led her to do this is personal, not opportunistic or a random act of violence. This girl and her friends came out of nowhere and have taken the person you perhaps loved the most and who perhaps loved you the most. In doing so, she's taken away any chance of forgiving Joel to his face. He died before you could restore your relationship. These facts will be filtered through your emotional state of mind, leaving reason behind. This campaign will not be founded on logic and intellect, but on raw rage and unyielding anger, which simmers on the memory and haunting flashbacks of the traumatic experience, eventually combusting into flames of pure hatred. You might think for a moment of what Abby's motives could possibly have been, but after a while, maybe even initially, it won't matter what they are. In your mind, charged by grief and loss, there is no excuse for what she did. This will paint Abby as a mindless monster who needs to be stopped, and more importantly, who needs to be punished for what she did to Joel, the desolation she has caused in the lives of so many. This will be the villainous picture hanging in the back of your mind as you go to Seattle with one purpose: avenge your father. Day one of Seattle starts off bright and hopeful. The blue sky filled with wondrous clouds. Rays of sun shine down upon open plains of lush green grass. Beyond a graveyard of clustered traffic and the walls built by the WLF, our environment opens its arms to our cautious embrace, giving us a taste of the life it once held and of the horrors still hiding in its crevices. Ellie and Dina talk about their unique pasts, their perspectives on the world, and the hope they carry for the future. Their banter is initially lighthearted and warm.
They got a bunch of records here. The Sleek Habit.
The Sick Habit.
Close enough.
Okay. We only listened to it like 100 times together.
I was only listening to it because I thought you were cute. This place brings back a lot of memories. My sister used to drag me to a synagogue all the time.
Do you still pray?
Sometimes.
Really? When?
I said one when we left Jackson. I said one at Joel's grave. Sometimes I just say little ones to myself.
Does it help?
I think it calms me. Helps me put things in perspective. It's a way to deal with grief. A way to show respect. It's what I know.
In a day or two.
But after encounters with the wolves, heart-pounding close calls, and the dreaded unveiling of the long arm of the wolf military presence, Ellie's love and optimism fades into unyielding persistence. Even as vengeance is taken through horrific, murderous deeds, Ellie's bloodlust is left unsatisfied. She doesn't just want those who took part in killing Joel to die. She wants them to die brutally, and by her hand, in a way she determines, weighed by the guilt she prescribes, based on her perception of what happened, becoming judge, jury, and executioner. This dissatisfaction only grows like an itch just below her skin that cannot be scratched. She begins to distance from Dina as her persistent need for revenge turns into cancerous obsession. All of her thoughts become of killing Abby and the rest of her crew. Her vision is narrowed. Nothing else matters. Even as Dina reveals her pregnancy, Ellie's obsession clouds her thinking and reframes what should be a moment to reflect on what matters most into yet another obstacle to what now takes precedence. A shift within Ellie is turning her heart filled with love into one with a single desire. But at the end of the day, it's left empty by the pursuit of that desire. A monster is growing inside of her. A demon of unimaginable violence is beginning to show its ugly face. Obsession in our culture is sort of like OCD, in that we often use it flimsily to describe more casual behaviors. How we're obsessed with a TV show, obsessed with the look, or OCD about keeping our bed made. We often use obsession in a positive way, but true obsession is anything but positive. These casual usages desensitize us to their real meanings and elude us their actual implications. OCD is a serious mental health disorder that can be debilitating. It's not something so simple as preferring to have things look orderly. It's the same with obsession. True obsession is destructive, and it's progressive, like cancer or diabetes. The more it's prolonged, the worse it gets. Like being stuck in quicksand, the more you fight against it, the deeper you sink. All your thoughts, dreams, and nightmares are concerned with it. You can't sleep, you can't eat, you can't live a normal life. All that matters is the obsession. The bright and sunny Seattle at the beginning of day one seamlessly turns gray. The sky is as clouded as Ellie's mind. The environment's as dark and cluttered. Not even a full day into this quest and it's already leaving a handprint, stained in egregious detail. The violence only ever intensified by the more difficult terrain we have to traverse, and the smarter, more powerful and calculated enemies we encounter. In clicker-infested tunnels below, rotting offices above, and miles of devastated land. It's as if everything that could stand in between us and Abby is standing between us and Abby. As if the environments of this city are taunting us, asking, "Have you had enough yet?" at every turn. The gameplay here seems to be meant to make us feel breathless, outnumbered, and overwhelmed, as our enemies never cease to startle us, threaten us, and force us to use what resources we can find, to upgrade our weapons, craft strategically, and use our instincts to outthink, outsmart, or outrun them. In brief flashbacks we see Joel once again, like we did in the museum tour, only now we are not greeted with feelings of fondness and attachment. We are assaulted with feelings of distrust and detachment. There is no comfort in arm's reach. All of this continues to beg the question at every turn. Is this still worth it? How far are we willing to go to avenge Joel? And is that even what this is about anymore? This resistance proves challenging, but it does not deter Ellie's purpose nor deplete her resolve. Our hand is forced to take lives before we're ever given a chance to weigh them, as we're backed into corners and pursued by dogs, infected, and vehicles, crafting bombs, Molotovs, and melee weapons, and gathering vital supplies as carefully as we can amongst the swelling chaos that surrounds us, all the while painting the city with the blood of armies, leaving behind their rotting corpses without hesitation, without a thought. It becomes an impulse, an instinct. As Ellie sinks below the water, it doesn't feel like drowning, but it bears the same stench of death and the same sting of regret. All of this is Ellie's inner world reflected outward. The pain, devastation, hurt, disgust, anger, hate, rage, and bitterness unleashed upon the outer world, turning beautiful remnants of Seattle into a wasteland that mirrors her own anguish. On our own to find Nora, who will likely lead us to Abby. We make decent progress until... The Seraphites, or Scars, are a fanatical religious group who follow the teachings of a woman painted throughout Seattle. Apparently someone who is strong in the face of adversity, possessing a strength and a courage that her followers aspire to. They had been at war with the WLF, and though it ended, they remain at odds with each other and sit on the brink of another all-out war. Like Ellie, we feel that we've stumbled across something older than our own conflict with the WLF, something beyond our understanding. Although the psychology of cults is a bit complex, and how one falls into a fanatical group can come out of innocent things. Curiosity, lack of education, desperation. The people that hunt us through the forest feel cold, calculated, and brutal. Taken at face value, they're crazy fanatics wielding more power than they ought, though we get no further insight on them until later in the game.
They are nested with sin. I didn't want to grief. Holy shit! Oh, no! No!
Now he is free.
Now he's free.
Search for stragglers.
Nora becomes a line in the sand, one Ellie must cross, having come this far, and fought, sacrificed, bled, cried, and suffered this much. On one hand, she really does want to understand why all of this has happened, what chain of cause and effect brought about the brutal execution of Joel. How Abby was hurt so badly by whatever Joel must have done to reinforce such a raw, hateful response. Ellie likely also wants to know if there was anything she could have done to stop it, or if what happened was inevitable, if things happened the way they were always going to. But on the other hand, all she truly desires is revenge. In such an emotionally charged state of mind, she doesn't care what the reasons are.
Back up!
Put your gun down!
You can walk away from this, okay? I can.
Shut the fuck up!
Gun down! Hands up!
Get back!
You have nowhere to go. Get downstairs! Take her out!
With every click of the button, Ellie strikes Nora, and we hear her cries of pain like fingernails on a chalkboard. Blood sprays from her battered flesh. A lot of us hesitate. This way of engaging the player in the brutality is eerily the most ingenious thing of the game's experience. How it takes hold of our emotions like a puppeteer, giving us glimpses of Joel and Ellie's best days, and then ripping it all away when Ellie loses herself. At this point, the Ellie who loved dinosaurs and comics,
Look at me! I'm on a motherfucking dinosaur!
and who fell in love with astronomy and puns, is gone. The unnameable has come to take her place. Nora's information leads us to the aquarium, Ellie's obsession personified in the unrelenting pursuit, swimming through raging waters once her boat cracks under the waves, looking through empty rooms swelled with uncanny silence, the desperate crawl through vents, fending off a vicious canine. Mel and Owen are irrelevant collateral damage in the moment, until Ellie realizes that Mel was pregnant. She is sent into psychological shock, numbness, stark resemblance to the monster of her own story. Caught off guard, the monster Ellie and Dina have been hunting through Seattle comes for them herself. And then we go back. The game takes us back to the conclusion of part 1 from the perspective of Abby and the Fireflies. We are not left to assume what Abby's life looked like or who the wolves are in their purest forms. Instead, we live it. Honestly, it pulls many of us kicking and screaming. We don't want to know what Abby's life is or what her relationship was like with her dad. We don't want to see her dad save a helpless animal. Manny worry about his father's declining health. Mel talk about her baby. Owen have mercy on scars. Abby's face after she kills Joel showing that she didn't feel satisfaction at all. We assumed that she did, but she didn't feel good about it. She felt conflicted, empty. We don't want to see any of it because we don't want to feel for them. We naturally refuse to empathize with those we perceive to be the outgroup or the other of our social group. But here, we're not just told of the lives we've taken or ruined as Ellie. We're given a front row seat to those lives. We're forced to see that there is another side, that the people we've been killing and running from this whole game are real people with lives they left behind, loved ones they left behind, placing incredible weight on the terrible things we did as Ellie. Now that we see the wolves as real people who are just as convinced of their truth as we are of ours, we realize the insurmountable effect of perspective. Who the hero is, who the monster is, becomes more of a thing not of objective truth, but of relative truth, depending on which side you stand. They say ignorance is bliss, but this game makes damn sure it won't be. Right off the bat, we're faced with a reality that recontextualizes everything we've experienced so far. Joel killed Abby's father, which sent her down a similar but equally self-destructive path as Ellie. She developed an unhealthy obsession that stood in the way of her and Owen. The full scale of the consequences her killing Joel will bring will not be fully realized until later on. We see this settlement, this community that has been built in the stadium. People are living in harmony as they had once done before. It's a lot like Jackson. Kids are in school. There's a dog that we can interact with. There's families, friends, and romantic partners. A lot of the people we meet as Abby, we have already killed as Ellie. Even the dog we play fetch with was one of our victims. Nora, Mel, Jordan, Whitney, Bear.
Holy shit!
We killed them all. We then encounter the Seraphites again, only now through the eyes of Abby. They are the outgroup, the misunderstood, misrepresented, dehumanized people of her story. The wolves and the Seraphites carry bigotry for one another. Abby and many of her people call the Seraphites scars, which is a derogatory slang used by those who disregard them and side against them. Lev rebukes this term and reinforces the actual name of his people, which takes Abby a while to adjust to, as she's not akin to treating these people as people, giving them basic human dignity and respect. How Abby and Manny talk about Seraphite children being killed shows just how deep their hate is. They don't really see them as children, or at least not on the same level as their children. Mel at least has some empathy. Owen does as well, even going so far as to spare one of their lives, which leaves him outcasted by his own people. This is tribalism in its clearest form. The WLF leader, Isaac, confronts Abby on the island and asks, "What's that behind you?" Which I believe is intentionally worded in such a way that refuses to say who is behind you. As a species, we've evolved with tribalism mentalities. This is your people, and these are my people. We don't belong together. We can't coexist. Tribes of many ancient people would despise each other to such a degree that they would sometimes attempt to wipe each other out entirely, kill off babies of other tribes so as to end their bloodline. This is something seen in some animals. Lions, for instance, will sometimes kill the offspring of the previous dominant male of a pride. It's instinctual. We want our bloodline to survive. At the smallest, microscopic genetic level, we want our genes to be passed down and to survive. It's only natural. However, as we've evolved further, we've discovered that cooperation significantly increases our chances of survival. And so, we've built societies. At its foundation, a society is based on coming together, crossing racial, religious, and denominational lines, crossing the nearly infinite number of lines that have previously been used to divide us, the almost infinite number of ways you can divide people. Bigotry is a flesh-eating virus to that foundational idea, as bigotry is about dividing people, creating outgroups left and right, deceiving people into viewing those outgroups as evil, corrupt, or an affront to the in-group's way of life, sometimes even a direct threat to the in-group's lives and those of their families. However, bigots can convince people that the outgroup is bad and needs to be dealt with accordingly. This is what has happened between the wolves and the Seraphites. I find it funny that Abby's fear of heights is reintroduced, and that it's ironically a line from the Seraphite prophet in the calming voice of a scar that carries her through perhaps the most terrifying moment of her life.
You ready? Can I get a minute? Please. Okay.
I think this is when it starts to become clear that these are just people. Sure, Lev and Yara were indoctrinated into a crazy cult, but there's still people underneath when you wash it all away. You have a flawed person struggling with very human problems, scared like the rest of the world, emotionally fragile, innocent in their youth. They're just people. When Abby dreams about them, it's a haunting reenactment of when she finds her father dead in the Firefly Hospital. Instead of seeing him, she sees Lev and Yara, and after she saves them, she dreams again. This time she finds her father alive, smiling, with light illuminating his presence. To me, this says that her father's legacy that lives somewhere within Abby is a philosophy of looking for the light, Abby notes that when you're lost in the darkness, look for the light was her father's saying, something that stuck with her even through years of being Isaac's top scar killer. That philosophy of looking for the light could in one sense be the vaccine Ellie could have been used to make, but in another sense, it could be a way of doing right by others, creating good in this fallen world of darkness, manifesting righteousness out in the world, that even if there's so much bad and evil and disgusting, horrific acts of violence that surround us, we can choose to be better people, to be lights in the darkness. Abby's father guided her to that philosophy, leaving an example to her of how to be a better person among evil people. He was also a flawed person, but he took steps to try and make the world a little bit better, as much as he could, even if it only ever amounted to a small ripple. Eventually, it would become a wave as that example was passed on. Bigotry is a toxin that poisons that philosophy. Abby realized that in her obsession of avenging her father, she has forgotten his legacy, left to the wayside his example, and when she decides to take action and become a better person and do right by Lev and Yara, she settles the subconscious storm of her inner world. She finds a river of peace. She finds a purpose her life can serve. Haven, now a city of flames, shows us the end result of the bigotry, the tribalism, the hate. It's Abby's inner world reflected outward, a fight for control. It also represents what could happen to Jackson if people like Seth infect the community with bigotry without someone like Ellie there to counteract it. When you don't understand, when you don't seek to understand, or are afraid to understand, afraid or unable to feel empathy, this is the result. Everything dies. No structure is built strong enough to withstand the malice of a hateful heart. What beauty there was will be lost. What good there could have been done will be forgotten, and everyone within the shadow will fall. Back at the aquarium, Abby finds Owen's lifeless body in a pool of his own blood. She sees every chance they could have had to revive their relationship fade, every moment they spent together in vain. Her obsession directly led to Owen's death. Now, there must be an end. The game places us back in the moment just before we went back in time for Abby's story. Now we have to fight Ellie as Abby. Armed with this new perspective, I can understand why Abby wants to kill Ellie, but I don't want her to. I don't want to beat Ellie. It's the first time I've played a game where I don't want to beat the final boss. More so than the torture of Nora, I am at odds with who I'm playing as, with what the game is asking me to do. I can't stomach the thought of either of these characters winning. In fact, there doesn't seem to be a winner. No matter how this pans out, I don't see how I could ever be satisfied. When Dina comes in to save Ellie, Abby overpowers her and nearly sinks back into her shadow, but Lev saves her. Abby is now on a very different path. The actualization of her obsession and how it left her feeling nothing like how she thought it would for all those years made her realize that she didn't want what she thought she wanted, that it's not worth it. Actualizing the obsession isn't worth it. Now Abby has a purpose. Lev deserves a life without the twisted lens of the Seraphites before his eyes, and Abby is going to make sure he has one. But Ellie is left without vengeance, without resolution, without closure. And though she settles on a farm with Dina and JJ, the darkness within remains. The trauma lives.
Come on, little guy. Do you want to eat?
Ellie, look at me. It's okay. You're home. You're home. Breathe. Okay, I'm gonna take him, okay?
The guilt, the shame, the despair and agony will not simply die like a starved wolf. They are ever fed by the one thing they control, Ellie's inability to forgive. She can't let go. She can't let go of the hurt, the pain, the resentment. She can't let go of Joel. She can't open up and forgive someone for their shortcomings, and that includes herself. Alright, let's take a break from this serious tone for a minute and talk about trauma, just for a second. What is trauma? Well, let's say that you have a basket of laundry, right? And in fact, I have some laundry. Hey, can you put those clothes in the dryer for me?
Man, I'm not doing your laundry again. You get the fuck up and do it yourself.
Damn! Alright guys, I gotta go. I gotta do this laundry real quick. I'll be right back. But alright, let's take us back. So let's say you have laundry. What do you do with it? Well, if you're a normal person, you pile it up somewhere in a forgotten corner of your house and distract yourself from it for a while. Distract yourself from the fact that your standards of cleanliness have fallen this low. You can escape in some fantasy land like New Mexico. But then you come back to it, put on your Powerpuff Girl makeup and the brave face you bought on eBay, and you start folding your laundry. Each piece of clothing is familiar to you. You've worn them plenty of times and folded them at least 4 times since you bought them. There's a designated place for each piece of clothing to go. But what happens if you stumble across a pink thong with the inscription Bootylicious woven in fine yellow thread? You didn't buy that, right? I mean, if anybody asks, you didn't buy that. This creates a bit of chaos as you try to figure out where this thong came from. There's nowhere to put it because it doesn't belong. It's abnormal. Then let's say you go to buy a newspaper like you do every Sunday morning. Only this time, instead of a quality local newspaper, there's a Playboy magazine. That's abnormal, but it's not really terrifying. So what if instead of that, you are attacked by a jaguar? That's terrifying and abnormal. I mean, I guess the other thing could be terrifying too, depending on what's on the cover of the Playboy. So you have an experience that is both abnormal and terrifying. Your brain has nowhere to store this event in any neurofile, and so it circulates in your nervous system unresolved. People with PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder can have all the same feelings arise during a panic attack that they felt during the traumatic event. They can even smell the same scents. People can even have hallucinations of the event, whether auditory, visual, or both, and so they're reliving the traumatic event over and over and over. Not all traumas manifest in an adequate number of diagnostic symptoms for PTSD, but it will still have a huge impact on the quality of one's life. These are serious disorders that need to be treated by professionals. With the right treatment, many people make a full recovery and go on to live rich, full, and long lives. But Ellie is living in a world without this kind of help, and so she's left to face it without proper treatment.
Hey, stop. Hey, come on. We've got a family. She doesn't get to be more important than that. No. I'm not gonna do this again.
That's up to you.
Her pursuit is met with yet another unsatisfying end. Abby is already being killed. There's this moment as Ellie looks up at Abby, who looks half dead, beaten, broken, certainly not the same person she once was. I think there's a shift within Ellie at that moment. This monster that came into her life and wrecked it is now a fragile person who can barely stand up. She cuts her down and watches her cut down Lev and carry him to a boat. I think she sees a reflection of her and Joel. In a way, Abby and Lev are Joel and Ellie. Ellie just stares. This isn't who she came to kill, She didn't come to take away the Joel of someone else's life. But then there's that guilt again. The internalized need for vengeance or due diligence to do right by Joel or to do what she perceives as right. So she tries to kill Abby. She's got the upper hand. She's holding her underwater and slowly doing what she tried to do in Seattle, what she fought for, what she suffered for, what she left Dina and JJ for, what she thinks must be done. But then there's a flash of Joel in her mind, smiling, holding a guitar, and she lets Abby go.
How is it that you're never scared?
Who says that I'm not?
What are you scared of?
Let's see. Scorpions are pretty creepy. Being by myself. I'm scared of ending up alone.
The song is broken. Her life is decimated, her worst fear now realized. But she thinks back to the moment that flashed in her mind. It was this interaction with Joel, presumably the last interaction they had. And she's basically airing her pain, letting Joel know just how much what he did affected her. Even if she isn't right about how something like killing someone to make a vaccine should work, still her feelings about it, and they're still valid. She's still allowed to feel them. Joel just listens. He hears her out, which is a huge part of healing, just getting it out, yelling and cursing at the world if you have to. She says that her life would have mattered if she had died, and that Joel took that from her. At last we get to the root of why what happened has hurt Ellie so much. Her immunity basically defined her life for so long, gave her life importance. She brought hope to so many people. She could have saved so many people. That's why it hurts. She feels like her life's purpose was taken away, even her choice to die if she was given one. This isn't about logic, it's raw emotion. So it may not make the most sense to want to die, but this is what someone is feeling, not what someone has critically thought through. Joel admits that his part would be played again, no matter how it affects her, because it's who he is. His love was reignited from the death of his daughter by Ellie. He wasn't going to let that love die. In this way, Joel and Ellie come to understand each other as adults. This is what saved Ellie, by making her realize that taking out her anger, frustration, agony, and pain on others is a vicious cycle that only ever ends when you die. So killing Abby isn't settling a debt owed to the universe as she had constructed in her mind. It's unnecessary. The way to honor Joel is to live the life he wanted her to have, to be better than those who victimize, to be the light in the darkness that he knew she could be. And so that becomes her purpose, and the obsession finally dies. Her grief melts beside the dying fire of the love and hope she now carries. Her life is destroyed, but only when destroyed can it be rebuilt. The love and community she once had can be found again. And so she begins a new song and lets Joel go. And though his song is finished, she can lift her voice and sing a new song evermore. Someone comes into your life and kills your father. You take up the sword upon that someone, but even at blade's edge, your hand pulsating with pure rage, you can't do it. It's not who you are. It's who you became, but it's not who you have to be. They were the monster of your story, and through heinous acts of unimaginable brutality, you became the monster of their story. You then realize that there will always be a monster, for the monster is as much a part of this world as you. The only thing you can do is reject its serum, turn away from its temptations, and live alongside it. Just because there will always be a monster doesn't mean that monster has to be you.
is on you.
You don't understand.
I struggled for a long time with surviving. No matter what, you keep finding something to fight for.
Hey everyone, thank you for watching the video. It honestly means a lot. And for those who have subscribed, liked my videos, commented on my videos, that engagement helps my content tremendously. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. I wanted to address a couple of things. I know that there are people who don't like The Last of Us Part 2. I know it's no secret that the game is very controversial. And I think there's really two main reasons why. The first reason would probably be that, you got Joel's death and the way the story was told through different perspectives, and it's just not the typical way a story is told, especially for a video game. So it didn't work for some people, and that's fine. But then there's other people who are bigots, right? And I think, in my experience from what I've encountered, there's really two main types of people that dislike this game. The first kind is someone who has fair and valid criticisms against the game. They didn't like Joel's death, they didn't like the way the story was told, they didn't like the flow, the pace, the tone. Those things are perfectly valid. But the second type of critic are the bigots. And if you're a bigot watching this, I urge you to click off and just leave and never come back. So, this game and my video about the game has a strong emphasis on coming against bigotry, which I think is important now more than ever. So if you're a bigot, if you just don't like gays or trans people in your games, and that's why you don't like it, I don't care. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. So if that's you, just leave. But if you'd like to share some honest criticisms that aren't bigoted and don't ultimately boil down to just, oh, there's gays in a trans character. If you have valid criticisms, then I would love to hear them in the comments below. Also in the comments below, let me know what you think of The Last of Us TV show so far. I know there's been a lot of bigotry surrounding that show so far as well, because episode 3, Long Time, was a very powerful, emotional show. And, Bill and Frank just completely took that episode. I mean, powerhouses. The performances, the writing, the structure, everything. The music, the Long Time cover, beautiful. Lots of people have cried. I cried. Not afraid to admit it. I teared up, definitely. But, I'm not trying to be mean. I know there are people who have religious objections to homosexuality. It's the way I was raised, so I understand that. So I'm not trying to be mean and saying that I don't care what you think. It's just that if that's the way you are and you have an objection to homosexuality, to transsexuality, then okay, it doesn't concern me. I'm not that way anymore. So it doesn't concern me as far as if people have religious objections, then, ultimately you gotta do what you gotta do. And the same goes for me and everyone else in the world. So, well, let me know before I start rambling. Let me know what you think about The Last of Us TV show so far. I just absolutely adore it. I'm obsessed with it. And yes, that is a reference to my earlier bit in the video about obsession. I'm obsessed with this show. So let me know in the comments what you think about it. Also, on the community tab on my channel, there's going to be a poll to see what games you guys would like to see me play. I want to do just some casual, relaxed playthroughs. Just chilled, not taking anything too seriously, not doing anything try hard or whatever. Just like we're all sitting on one giant couch playing games together as friends. So if you'd like to see any of those games on that poll or any other game you can think of, put it in the comments, cast your vote. and I will make a playthrough of it. I will play through what games you guys want me to play through. I want it to just be a fun thing that people can relax to and chill and, you know, come home from a long day of work and just sit back and relax and just vibe. So if that sounds like something you'd like to do, then let's do it. Yeah, let's honestly do it. I can't guarantee the order of playthroughs, as I've already started the Last of Us PS5 playthrough. I just haven't gotten the videos uploaded yet, but they'll be coming after this one's uploaded. So I don't have the Dead Space remake yet, but I'm definitely gonna get it. That game looks like a lot of fun. I've never played those games before, so it's gonna be a first-time experience for me. So anyways, if any of that sounds like something you would be interested in. Also, one little idea that's kind of floating around in my head right now, beginner's guides. I know that Halo Infinite, because I've loved Halo since the first game in 2001, so I love that franchise. So I know Halo Infinite is kind of picking up right now. If you would like to see a beginner's guide on that game, on The Last of Us, on whatever game that I can provide some insight into, let me know as well in the comments below. So that's a lot of things in the comments. I'm asking you guys to basically write me entire essays and dissertations on what you want from this channel. So, but anyways, yeah, cast your vote, Arizona. And that way you can direct this channel as much as you watch it. So before I start rambling again, I'm going to go ahead and get off here. So I will see you guys in the next one.